Welcome to the Gary DeMar blogcast. This audio is brought to you by Canon Press.
Welcome to the Gary DeMar blogcast. Today's entry is titled, Gun Control in a World Where God Doesn't Matter. Once again, there's talk about more gun control in the United States. It happens every time some lunatic decides he wants to kill people. Gun control laws do not affect people who want to murder people. Murder is a crime, and yet people still murder. The vast majority of people in the United States who own guns have never unlawfully used their guns, and yet Democrats want to put further restrictions on them. The city of Chicago has strict gun control laws, and yet hundreds of people are shot every year. Criminals, by definition, do not pay attention to laws. In 2020, there had been more than 766 homicides, the highest number since 778 murders in 2016. Other numbers in Chicago also are markedly higher. 4,115 people were shot, 11,280 illegal guns seized, 7,236 gun arrests. This was in 2017. Strict gun control laws do not affect people hell-bent on committing gun violence. Great Britain has strict gun control laws. Advocates of gun control believe that these laws cut down on violence and crime. Such laws only empower lawbreakers. Gun homicides were low in the United Kingdom even before gun control laws went into effect. This does not mean that there hasn't been any gun violence since these laws went into effect in 1977. Over the course of a few days in the summer of 2001, for example, gun-toting men burst into an English court and freed two defendants. A shooting outside a London nightclub left 5 women and 3 men wounded, and 2 men were machine-gunned to death in a residential neighborhood of North London. And on New Year's Day in 2002, a 19-year-old girl walking on a main street in East London was shot in the head by a thief who wanted her mobile phone. London police went looking to New York City police for advice. Gun control has had an impact elsewhere, a dramatic increase in other violent crimes. For example, comparing London and New York, cities of very similar population and demographics, the rate of assaults and robberies is over 6 times as high and 7 or 10 times nationwide, depending on the statistics that are used. Compared with the United States, the United Kingdom has a slightly higher total crime rate per capita. Riots in London a few years ago indicate that lawless people will use any means at their disposal to force their will on others. 3 men were killed by an automobile, people were openly beaten in the streets, and business establishments were looted, while others were burned. Store owners had no way of protecting their property. The people doing the looting knew that they would meet little resistance. And they weren't just the poor and disenfranchised. A millionaire's daughter, a ballet student, a musician, an organic chef, a university graduate student, and a law student are just some of those of the people who were arrested for the crime. In reality, the English approach has not reduced violent crime. Consider knife crimes in Great Britain are on the rise. Instead, it has left law-abiding citizens at the mercy of criminals who are confident that their victims have neither the means nor the legal right to resist them. Imitating this model would be a public safety disaster for the United States. So what does the law-abiding citizen in Great Britain do? He shops on Amazon for baseball bats. He can't buy guns, so he gets the next best thing, a metal version of the Louisville Slugger. In 24 hours, sales for baseball bats on Amazon UK rose by more than 6,000%. More than 10 years ago, defenseless citizens were also buying police-style telescoping truncheons. The spring-loaded ones are illegal. The Guardian reported the following. Amazon has removed several police-style telescopic truncheons from sale on its site as soaring sales of truncheons, baseball bats, and other items that could be used as weapons sparked fears of vigilantism in the wake of widespread rioting. Law-abiding citizens became even more defenseless. They couldn't even order a baseball bat online to protect themselves from roaming thugs. Maybe it's time they whittled down their cricket bats. Paul Joseph Watson wrote, Just like gun control, banning baseball bats only disarms the public and creates victims. Criminals will always be able to acquire weapons of any description because they do not obey the laws. Leaving Brits defenseless will only embolden the rioting hordes." Close quote. Weapons have been with us since the beginning of time. Cain could have used a rock or a club to kill Abel. Maybe it was a knife. He might have even strangled him with his bare hands. Envy does something to a person. It brings out the rage. We don't know, and it doesn't matter what implement was used. It was Cain's sin that we remember and despise. James describes the progression from thought to action. But each one is tempted when he is carried away and enticed by his own lust. Then, when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it gives forth death. James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. It's not any more complicated than this. Something similar was told to Cain. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it." Genesis 4:7. The problem wasn't a weapon that was at Cain's disposal. The problem was Cain. Liberals and secularists don't believe in sin. People do what they do because of things and circumstances, a worldview that does not comport with biblical reality. Colossians 2:20, verse 23. There must have been an environmental problem, unresponsive parents, being picked on, a broken relationship, the rich, Donald Trump. No one dares call it the fruit of lust, a desire to overthrow good with evil with any means at one's disposal. But people have always been sinners. Why are these mass tragedies happening now? The controlling elements of shame and guilt have been removed. Community revulsion and expulsion are no longer factors in restraining behavior. Enough Westerners have a mind my own business method of dealing with bad behavior, if it's even called bad. It's been drummed into our heads that we cannot impose our morality or anyone's morality on others. Therefore, the neighborhood bully cannot be restrained. His parents might sue you. The Columbine killers exhibited antisocial behavior. They were just expressing themselves. What could the principal do? If the parents didn't show up first, the ACLU would have been at the school to threaten a lawsuit because the principal was imposing some arbitrary form of morality on the students. Freedom of expression rules the day. In a similar way, the ACLU would have responded with quicker resolve if the principal or some caring teacher had counseled the boys by sharing the gospel with them. Consider what happened to the principal of a public school in Jackson, Mississippi, when he allowed the reading of the Bible over the intercom. Yes, your friendly ACLU was there to see that it never happened again. Better to create an environment of total self-will that refuses to acknowledge that there is a God who holds us accountable and provides the means of overcoming our lust for what belongs to others. Multiculturalism, the kind that claims that all value systems are equal, has failed as those familiar with history predicted it would. Margaret Thatcher saw the future of England and possibly the future of the United States. On May 21, 1988, she made the following comments to the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. "We are a nation whose ideals were founded on the Bible. Also, it is quite impossible to understand our literature without grasping this fact. That is the strong, practical case for ensuring that children at school are given adequate instruction in the part which the Judeo-Christian tradition has played in molding our laws, manners, and institutions. How can you make sense of Shakespeare and Sir Walter Scott, or of the constitutional conflicts of the 17th century in both Scotland and England without such fundamental knowledge? But I would go further than this. The truths of the Judeo-Christian tradition are infinitely precious, not only, as I believe, because they are true, but also because they provide the moral impulse which alone can lead to that peace, in the true meaning of the word for which we all long for. But there is little hope for democracy if the hearts of men and women in democratic societies cannot be touched by a call to something greater than themselves. Political structures, state institutions, collective ideals are not enough. We parliamentarians can legislate for the rule of law. Democracy requires the life of faith as much to the temporal as to the spiritual welfare of the nation." Close quote. Those determined to impose their will on others will not be deterred by anti-gun laws. If they can't shoot to kill, they will explode to kill, knife to kill, poison to kill, bludgeon to kill, strangle to kill. They, like the antagonists and Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange, will use any means at their disposal to satisfy their disregard for a worldview that holds them accountable. Who are you to tell me what to do? To this question, the godless have no real answer.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Gary DeMar Blogcast. Now in the Canon app, you can check out Gary North's video series, The History of the Conservative Movement. So download the Canon app today, subscribe, and check out all the Great American Vision stuff we have there, as well as several hours of other content, audiobooks, video content, and audio series as well. Thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you next time.